Good evening, and welcome to Having a Drink with Mink, the 800 subscriber special. That's right, folks, we did it! 800 subscribers. I'd like to thank each and every one of you who join us on these here little broadcasts of ours. It's fantastic to be able to entertain you. We certainly appreciate it. We're going to do something a little special. I know that we've been away for a while, and, we might not come back for another week or two, but we just had to acknowledge this milestone. 800 subscribers is fantastic. When we started off low, those many, I don't know, was it like 3 years ago? It was a while ago. It's been a slow burn, let's say, but we're super excited to have hit that mark, 800. Pretty gosh darn good. So let's get right to it. The celebration begins now. I hope you have a nice beverage on hand. I know that I do. Maybe you dressed up for the occasion. If you didn't, it's no big deal. We're all friends here, after all. So, from me to you, cheers. Whoa. 800 proof, Larry? It's the good stuff. Okay, I'm joined as always by my co-host. It's Naked Woody Harrelson, and he's doing some sort of archery thing for the new year. Very athletic, absolutely very sporty. And our first action figure of the year, I'm pretty happy to add the Mummy to the collection. Ever since Mego came back in 2018, they've been knocking it out of the park with classic monsters, and we finally received the Mummy that we've all been waiting for. That's right, it's Boris Karloff as Imhotep from the original 1932 Universal Classic. And here he is on a nice card featuring some artwork of the character right there. Now, lots of times these Mego monster cards, they'll have sort of generic backgrounds. You might expect this to just have a sort of pyramid or, some camels and some sand dunes, a moon, setting dramatically in the back. But no, actually, we get some Boris right there. And then on the back, well, I'm not really sure. I had meant to do a little bit of research, but didn't nail that down. Hopefully we'll get that in pre-production. Ooh, there we go. But, hey, the card isn't what's important. It's the figure inside. And to help us get that out, we have both Sir Basil Snippington and Stabby Joe. That is right. I know that a lot has been made of the feud between these two, but you know what? They're thick as thieves. Don't listen to the scandal sheets, folks. You heard it here first. They're the best of pals. And when it comes right down to it, well, we don't really need them to open this particular figure because, well, I've already shot this episode 2 times. The first 2 times, well, it didn't work out, various reasons, but we're not going to dwell on the negative. We're going to focus on the positive, and as positive as reanimated evil Egyptian high priest can be, and he's looking pretty gosh darn good, I gotta say. That is some very snug bandages, and got some flaps back here. This is almost comedic in nature. Could probably do some kind of funny running gags with him zipping along like that. But it's a great likeness of Boris. The figure can actually move a bit. I don't think you'd want to move him too much for fear of dislodging these bandages. I'm not really sure how they're applied, if it's a complete suit that will hold up to wear, or if they're actually just layered pieces that might separate as you play with your toys. And while playing with our toys is the whole point of this endeavor, some of them you have to go a little easy on, for sure. So we'll set him right there. You may have noticed I have another Mummy, and this is the Sideshow Toys edition of the Mummy. I believe this was issued in 2003. This is the black and white version from the Universal Monsters Series 1, sculpted by Olaf V. Hartvigsen. And that's not a bad Scrabble hand. That's actually his name. Olaf did an amazing job The sculpt on this guy is out of this world. The likeness is truly dynamic. Really, really terrific stuff. The black and white paint job, well, it only adds to the vibe. The problem with this guy is he's top heavy because he's sculpted to kind of have this shifty gait, but when you put the cuts there, well, he has a tendency to fall over. He's gotten weak in the knees, if you will. Probably had a few of these. And ultimately, he's been leaning up against the wall for the most part, but I'll probably cycle him out for this new guy. Hey, why not? So yeah, it's the Mego Mummy. If you love Universal Monsters, if you love action figures, this figure was a great deal. It was only $17, so get him while the getting is good. Hey, and it looks like Godzilla is slimmed down for the new year. Way to go, big guy. Wow, it's very tiny. All right, so what's it all about, Alfie? Well, it's old guys who like old comics, and that's what we have to show you right here. And this is a very special batch. How special, you might ask? Well, allow me to wet my whistle, and then I will illuminate you. Oh, that slurp was very undignified. We'll cut that out in editing, won't we, Larry? He assures me we won't. Well, it has a sort of Count Chocolatey kind of taste. How well did you wash this glass? All right, so what I have here are mostly coverless cuties. Had an opportunity to take a crack at a box a few weeks back. I had felt my spirits flagging. I had felt the vibe that I was getting from reading old comics. It just wasn't coming on quite as strong. I think that I'd fallen into a rut. Maybe I was buying too many Archies. None of which you will see in this episode, by the way. I just needed something a little new, something a little different, and I had an opportunity to get my hands on some Silver and Bronze Age Marvels, and I just been reading them at random. I pull them out of the box, just one after the other. I don't even pick and choose. If I've even read an episode, doesn't bother me. I just get right into them because it's just been fun to have that experience again, to not know what you're getting and just dive right in. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive right in with X-Men number 44. In this thrilling installment, Marvel's Merry Mutants take on the Cobalt Man. That is, when they're not listening to Bob Dylan records. I never thought you could dance to Like a Rolling Stone, but hey, that's my hang-up, I guess. Then we have X-Men number 56, and a stunning Neil Adams cover. Well, 2/3 of it anyway, but hey, it's still good. Check out this killer page featuring the Living Pharaoh. The big guy has never looked better. Then it's issue 33, and the teeners tackle both Tyrannus and the Mole Man. And as you can see, this is another issue from the Randy Mills collection. Say what you will about his penmanship, but the kid liked his comics. One more X-Men featuring the return of Magneto with some nice George Tuska artwork. However, here on the back is the real news. You're going to want to buy multiple copies of at least one of these, kid. Then how about some weird Wonder Tales featuring Trag, Hunter of Humans? It's typical Atlas Age fare, but it's this inside panel that stands out. Let's everyone keep their pants on this game, okay, fellas? You're on a public street. This issue of The Defenders features a team-up with Bashful Benji, slumming in his time away from the FF. That said, you need this issue for the value stamp, featuring MODOK, the mental organism designed only for kissing. Pucker up, Buttercup. Here's Maddie Murdock doing a jig at the thought of asking Karen Page to marry him. Yeah, there's a union you can bet is built on high and solid ground. And dig this full pager from cuddly Jean Colon. Talk indeed. Here's Daredevil 52, and hey, Randy's handwriting has really improved. Way to do it, bud. Now please, stop writing on my comics. Here's a crusty old beater copy of Marvel Collector's Items Classics, which is the condition I usually find them in. Heck, if they're cheap, I don't mind. There's nothing like a well-loved comic. Speaking of a well-loved comic, here's a little Fantastic Four asking that musical question, what lurks behind the beehive? Well, back in the early aughts, it was Trust Fund Josh and his two-finger bags, but hey, I guess the less said about that, the better. Here's an issue of Thor, and what do you know? It's a key, featuring the first appearance of Thor's betrothed, the sensational Sif. And my, how she has grown. Suddenly Jane Foster is about as appealing as a hardware store broom. And how about a little two-gun kid? I'm not a big Western guy, but it's hard to turn my nose up at any 12-center and dig this old-fashioned gunfight. That's some mighty fine shooting, son. This is one of the gems of the box, a battered but complete copy of Daredevil number 4, featuring the first appearance of the Purple Man. I'm a sucker for the original yellow outfit, and thanks to pencils by Joe Orlando, it's never looked any better. And take a peek at these other Titanic titles on sale this month. Better save your shekels, Sahib, it's gonna be pricey. Here's the Avengers sporting fish bowls on their heads. No oxygen tanks needed. Hey, there should be enough in there to last them at least half a minute. I guess that solves the problem of not being able to hear each other underwater anyway. Those in the know will recognize this next issue even with half the cover missing. It's Doctor Strange, number 177, where Doc goes from being a guy with a mustache to a guy who wears a mask to hide said mustache. Not really much of a change, but hey, it certainly makes for a striking visual. And dollars to donuts, we'll see this version of Doc in the upcoming movie. You heard it here first. More Avengers. Don Heck was a fine artist, but his work on this book never really did much for me. That said, I do dig this old ad for the Plastic Army Men. As a kid, I drew similar images, but was frustrated that my magic markers couldn't give me the fine lines that I'd see in comics. Here's another Heck Avengers, and what a startling image. Giant or not, an arrow at that distance is gonna do some damage. Best to just step on him, Hank. Trust me, no court in the world would convict you. Speaking of the Hawkster, here he shills for the home team. You belong. We jump forward to the funky 1970s and the middle of the Celestial Madonna storyline, and it looks like Swordsman is going to pieces over his sometimes girlfriend Mantis. I'm with Iron Man on this one. Pull yourself together, bud. Kids are reading this. We follow along with the next issue, which sees Swordsman rise to the occasion instead of blubbering into his mustache, desecrating an ancient pyramid, and encountering a bloodthirsty vampire. Yowza! More of this, please. Over in Captain America, Steve had put down his shield to assume the new identity of Nomad, discovering all too quickly why his original suit didn't have a cape. Good thing the other Avengers aren't around to see this. Even Swordsman would laugh. Here's a nifty Neil Adams illustrated Avengers featuring the ever kooky Inhumans. And while Hawkeye becoming Goliath was a somewhat contentious transition, it did give the group some much-needed raw power and visual distinction in an era of rapidly occurring change. This was a weird one, focusing on the coming of Red Wolf. The House of Ideas came up with some odd ones, but you gotta play to win, I reckon. Great John Buscema artwork here, including the first appearance of Lobo. Good puppy. A nice Spidey from early in John Romita's run. Steve Ditko's presence is still evident in this representation of the Lizard, who would get sleeker and less bumpy in the following years. I quite like this art from a previous issue, reprinted in the letter column. That was always a nice bonus. Here's Captain America 106, and Cap is going wild. And who could blame him? The guy is just happy to have his own full-length book after having to share a comic with Iron Man all those years. And dig that Kirby contraption. Imagine the adapter you'd need to plug that into the wall. Here's a Buscema-era Conan in Night of the Gargoyle. And because we aim to please here on Having a Drink with Mink, here's the Gargoyle in all his stony glory. If I had a van, this would be a strong contender for painting on the side. Well, that or this, anyway. Here's a lonely DC, but it's a good one. Jack Kirby's now iconic OMAC number 1. As weird and compelling as this cover is, I think DC did the story a disservice by showing it up front, as it diminishes the heartbreak of the story inside. Still great, though. Here's another Cap issue back from when he quit. It takes a bit of subterfuge from an unlikely source to get Steve's head back in the game, but he'd come around soon enough. This page just screams Sal Buscema. From the action poses to the ropey spit, there's no mistaking it. Apparently, Randy Mills decided Iron Man's unibeam would look better in blue, and the kid was clearly onto something, as the movies would eventually follow his lead. And check out this old ad for Marvel t-shirts. Who the heck is this guy? Let me know in the comments section below. A little Marie Severin artwork for all you Greenskin fans out there. It's actually pretty amazing how many artists have worked on the Hulk over the years. Seems like everyone's taken a pass at the Jade Giant at one point or another. Hulk like town bike. Everyone has taken ride. Here's the Tales of Suspense featuring Iron Man doing the cool jerk. It was all the rage back then. Following that is another Cap story, and man, you gotta figure there were a lot of guys walking around with this heel mark on their chins back then. Grandpa, how did you get that scar? I don't want to talk about it! Then there's this early Marvel team-up featuring the debut of Stegron the Dinosaur Man. A wonky character to be sure, but you can't argue with that stunning two-pager from Gil Kane, who absolutely goes for it. And to think, you got all this for 20 cents. You can keep your crummy relationship. Ours is a perfect love. That's right, Tales of Ideal Romances, featuring I Loved a Toreador. No bull. And Grok the slice of humor from a time when cocktail napkins and Frank Sinatra set the tone. Cheers. Here's a mighty colorful cover from Prize Comics Western. You know, my kid has a pair of knee socks just like his. I didn't know Hot Topic was a thing back then. And hey, are you naturally skinny? Well, you're a goddamn liar, according to Charles Atlas. Make with the secret, Slim. Charlie don't want to hurt ya. I'm a sucker for pre-code crime, so I snapped up this beater toot sweet. What can I say? Reading D's keeps kids like me off the street. And while I'm in the house, I'll do a little sleuthing in my very own detective cap. Time to unravel the mystery of the missing alligator. And how about some headline comics for the American boy? Other boys need not apply. 52 pages of thrills, the biggest of which for me was this full-page ad for Dick Briefer's Frankenstein. Looks like the merry monster has a magazine of his own. Nice jacket. Here's another DC for you fans of variety, and I have to admit this is a pretty fun mashup of the Batman and Robin costumes, even if the hero is volunteering exploitable information. I guess Batman 2 will have to punch all the harder. The next issue of Justice League sees the team take on their Earth 2 counterparts, and while I've always been compelled by the pre-goatee Green Arrow, the star of this issue for me is this ad for Matt Mason Toys. My grandparents had a box in the basement of these left over from their previous kids. The rubber figures had long perished, leaving me with no idea what the heck these things actually were. They were still fun to play with, though. 2001 and Jack Kirby seemed like a pair made in heaven, but the end result was a mixed bag. While the writing could be a bit uninspired, the King's artwork remained a treat for the eyes. Turn on the black light, baby. It's a stone groove. And here's Jimmy Atlas Olsen making short work of some brawny competition, while Superman looks on slack-jawed from the sidelines. That's all very good, Jimmy, but let's see you do some real wrestling and eat a turnbuckle. If I could only have one Tarzan cover, then it had to be this one. I've seen it posted a dozen times, and it's always caught my eye. A truly striking image by George Wilson. See? When that dentist isn't bothering him, the guy can turn out some great work. And how about this interior? Rat-a-tat-tat. Cop this action cover with Perry White getting the spotlight, along with a crypto appearance. For all that, it's the inside panel that cracks me up. Watching people while they sleep is creepy, Cal, even if their initials are LL. I was happy to add this copy of Planet of the Apes #1 to my collection. I love the original films, and the Marvel adaptation was always a welcome addition to the evolving canon. Here, a nice illustration of one of the film's early scenes, Shades of Alfred Hitchcock. Then there's issue 9 to keep the ball rolling with a cover no self-respecting kid could say no to. Apes, skeletons, and subway cars? Hell, that and CB radios are all I remember about the 1970s. Well, that and these Mego figures whose appearance in comics assured that kids from Pittsburgh to Poughkeepsie knew all about them. Here's some Invaders action featuring that wacky funster De Fuhrer up to his usual shenanigans. Oh, Adolf, when will you ever learn? And how's about this ad for Marvel's Star Wars? Not a bad take on the characters considering other iterations of the period. Then we have Iron Fist #1, which carries the story over from the book I have previously appeared in. This issue has some slick John Byrne art, including this dynamic panel featuring our hero facing off against none other than Iron Man. Pop him in the nose, Danny. I'm including this issue of the Hulk not because the story is any great shakes, but because it's an excuse to show this classic Hostess ad. Wendigo and the Abomination? That's some crispy, flaky, villainy goodness. Next up, a coverless Marvel Collector's Item classic, most notable for both its inclusion of Avengers #2 and Daredevil #1, which many fans had probably missed the first time. Gotta love the energy here. The character's sense of swashbuckling adventure truly comes through. How about this tidy knot brand egg? While every story inside is a winner, it's this ad I want to show you, as this particular image became fairly iconic on its own. Marvel issued it themselves first in the 1960s, but a few years later, Roach would put out a version themselves. Today it might seem jarring to see Spidey share a page with Mr. Natural, but back then, well, we took all we could get. Here's an issue of Supernatural Chillers featuring the debut of Modred the Mystic. And while many of the comics I have with cut covers only have damage on the first page, this book is slit nearly halfway through. Someone did not want me to enjoy this comic, but I did anyway. Takes more than that to stop the kid. This issue of The Defenders is fun, not just for the story, but because of the big ad on the back page. You too could have a marvelous Halloween if you bought one of these great masks. Only problem is the book is cover dated December, which means it's hitting the newsstands in late September, early October, and the masks take at least 4 weeks to deliver. Who's the goof now, Jimmy? Here's a chapter of the Avengers Defenders War, which sees the team fighting over a mysterious enchanted eye, or some such. You know how it was back then. A briefly defending Hawkeye takes on Avenger Iron Man by whacking him over the head with an acid arrow. Hey, sometimes the direct approach is the best, right? And how about this FF featuring the Hulk? It's always fun to see old Greenie make an appearance, but it was this scene of Reed making like a human parachute to slow a falling airplane that stopped me in my tracks. As Carson would say, weird, wild stuff. And let's cap it off with one final issue of the Fantastic Four, where we're treated to an appearance by Teenage Annihilus. Here, between listening to his Bauhaus records and cutting up his t-shirts, he ponders just why it is that pain hurts so much. Why indeed, buddy? Why indeed? So I'm thrilled to add these books to my collection. They're going to go into the trunk. That is right, the legendary trunk. It's a careful cultivation of coverless comics and otherwise, putting together, make a little time capsule, if you will. You know, I like the idea of having a box just chock full of old junk comics that are nonetheless rich in entertainment value. I like to think that there are many of those boxes out there in the world for us to discover. So, hey, I'll do my part. I'll create one, and who knows? Keep your eyes open. You just might find it sitting by the roadside sometime. Speaking of sitting by the roadside sometime, I gotta get out of here. But thank you for joining us on this very special 800 subscriber episode of Having a Drink with Mink. Like I said, we're not quite back 100% yet. I just wanted to do a little something to acknowledge this special occasion. 800 subscribers is a pretty big deal. I didn't want it to go by unnoticed. Probably in a few weeks, you'll be seeing Comics for Breakfast. You'll be seeing more of these, maybe even some three-mans for $5. And I will most certainly see you on the other side. Cheers, my friends.